That's why. Have you seen the movie that he uses it in? It's in Skyfall.
I've not actually seen a Bond movie, even though I have the set.
Well, you are seriously missing out, is all I can tell you. But there's a part where this one notoriously has an ejector seat, and so this is also how I know for sure it's the same car because he's having to drive M out to trying to find some place to escape from Javier Bardem's character, and so he's getting a little tired of her lip. And the gear shifter, you flip up the top, and that's where the button is. And he does that, and she's like, "Oh, sure, fine. You just go ahead and blast me out with the ejector seat." And he's just like, "Don't tempt me."
I, I've heard that the Craig movies are hit or miss.
I liked him. You just have to accept that it's a different take on Bond,
It's trying to be more realistic.
trying to be, and that kind of works. But you're talking to someone that really likes the Roger Moore era of Bond, which is like as unserious as it could possibly be while still kind of being serious. Because like Roger Moore,
He was
each of the actors played him differently. Like Sean Connery, I do consider Connery to be the best one, like flat out. He is that like I think it's I think the expression is the devil may care attitude, is in like he knows full well what his job is. He's not a spy. He's an assassin. That's Bond's job. They dress it up, but he doesn't spy. He doesn't industrial saboteur. He kills people. That's what his job. His job is to find out who needs to be killed and then to kill them.
and he doesn't care how many other lackeys are going to get in his
Right.
way.
So Connery had that like that gallows humor about him. Like he would joke, but like you could tell he was serious about what he was doing. Then after him, well, during his run, George Lazenby takes over for one movie, where some of the only things that ever carry over to the other movies occur, and then he's gone, and then Connery comes back for I think it's Diamonds Are Forever, and then it goes into Roger Moore. Roger Moore, he's a little more like plays it more like he's like an aristocratic playboy kind of thing. He jokes a lot more. Still kills people, but he jokes a lot more about it. And then you had Timothy Dalton for two movies, and he's just like 100% deadpan serious. You know, like his is like that real stiff British humor when he occasionally has a joke, but for the most part, he's like, "I'm here to kill people, and that's what's going to happen now." And then you had Pierce Brosnan, who was, in my opinion, I liked him as Bond. He was a little of some of the others here and there. Like he had the jokes, he had like the smirks and the smarminess of Roger Moore, but also the more serious moments from Connery and Dalton. And then Craig is a reboot but for some reason kept Judy Dench on as M. The only way you can look at it differently. Well, then there's the Aston Martin problem. It only makes sense if he was Bond back then, you know. And so like the Craig movies just like really throw everything for a loop because it's clear the first couple, if we're to assume that it's been the same man all this time, the first couple have to take place before all the other movies. It's literally when he earns his double O status. Then all the other movies happen, and now he's like the old beat up, I've been through the ringer Bond, and it just doesn't work. Okay, and all the homages begin to hurt the movies because it's like, so is this supposed to be the same guy or not?
Is it?
Well, I don't know. And the other problem is it destroyed one fan theory that would have explained everything. That Bond was just a name that they gave to the agent. But the problem is in Skyfall, you see his parents' grave. His actual name is James Bond. Like that's not just a code name that they give to whoever comes in next after the last guy dies or retires. So they're like, no, no, he is James. That is his real name, which also makes him the worst spy in the universe. Every place he goes in, Bond, James Bond. And it's like, why are you giving them your real name? What are you doing? Like, And of course, the bad guys know who James Bond is. Because, like, well, we've heard of you. You've killed like 20 of our people already, just in like the 10 minutes it took you to get here from the airport.
I mean, he's used fake names in some of the movies.
Every once in a while, he does. But whenever he does, he's going up against people that have like resources that within 2 minutes know who he really is. Like he tries that in. It's not the Living Daylights. I mean, he might try the Living Daylights. It's been forever since I've seen that one. Um, A View to a Kill, where Christopher Walken's the villain in that one. He's the product of Russian genetic engineering or something. It ends with a Zeppelin fight over the Golden Gate Bridge. It's great. But anyway, other than that absurdity, uh, also, for whatever it's worth, I never thought I'd ever would have considered that I actually kind of rooted for one of the Bond villains to succeed, but in that one, in hindsight, I kind of do. Max Zorin was his name. He was going to blow up Silicon Valley. And like in hindsight, I'm kind of like, might not be a bad thing. But so,
What was the other one?
which other one?
Bond villain you're rooting for?
I don't know. I'd have to think on that. I kind of felt bad for Javier Bardem's character in Skyfall. Like, he got captured or something and tried to use the suicide capsule and it didn't kill him. It just like really screwed up his face. Because like they capture him because he's clearly out for revenge at this point, right? And he's like one of the only other like old school spies left out there. And so he's after M for revenge. And she's like, well, you could have at least had the decency to kill yourself. He's like, well, I tried. Check this out. Like pulls this thing out that's holding his cheek out, and like his face just like collapses in. And he's like, yeah, your suicide pill didn't work. Thanks. And so like they just like left him hung out to dry. And I was kind of like, M's probably got this one coming. Like I mean, he's evil. He's like killing a bunch of innocent people in the process. He also deserves to die. But like, he might have a point. So kind of agreed with him. Uh, Kind of agreed with Sean Bean's character in Goldeneye. I mean, Bond really did just leave him to die at the beginning of the movie. He didn't know yet that he was a double agent. And then Bond reset the timers on the bombs without telling him. So, I mean, admittedly, Bond thought he was dead. So there's no need to tell a corpse, hey, the timers got cut in half. You might want to get out of here. So the building blows up and burned half of his face. Then he was like, well, the British really screwed over my people at the end of World War II. He's a Cossack. His parents were. They turned him back over to Stalin, who, did what Stalin did to everyone he didn't like. And he's like, so I'm going to get revenge on the British government and, like, the rest of the British people by firing the GoldenEye satellite and eliminating all your electronic records because it's a massive electromagnetic pulse weapon. After I steal all the money from your banks 5 minutes before that, which you won't be able to trace because I'm going to destroy the records in your end. So as one was like, I get where you're coming from here. Like, I think your anger is justified. I think what you're doing is a little over the top, but I get it. So, yeah. Most of the rest,
Which Bond movies should I watch?
yes.
All of them?
Realistically, yes. And I'd watch them in order. But, like, if I had to pick, like, highlights, you should definitely watch Goldfinger. That's, in my opinion, probably the best Bond movie. Now, it might seem dull to you because I watched it when I was much younger than you. I watched a lot of them when I was a lot younger. And so my brain is able to just like skip over all the really boring parts and just only remembers like the cool action sequences. And now as an adult, I'm like, okay, I get the boring parts. But like as a teenager, I probably like, God, this blows. Because if you ever watch the honest trailers for the Bond franchise, for the Connery Bond movies, like, yeah, I remember all those cool spy scenes. I bet you forgot all those moments where Bond spends time checking into a hotel, doing paperwork, trying to do actual surveillance, throwing his hat onto the hat rack to impress Miss Moneypenny, who he's not going to sleep with, and just like all the just like things that are just total filler in the movies because movies were like that. But no, Goldfinger. Uh, I would say Diamonds Are Forever, but it's a little over the top. I would say You Only Live Twice, where you get to where you get to see them try to make Sean Connery look like a Japanese man by giving him black hair and dyeing his skin, and then he marries a Japanese woman as a cover story. Unfortunately, she gets killed. And but the more important part is you get to see Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, the head of Spectre, with his awesome fortress that's inside of a dormant volcano, where he launches his probes out into space to capture like U.S. and Soviet space things, trying to get the U.S. and Russia to go to nuclear war against each other. Like most of Spectre's plans kind of oscillate between things in space and using nukes to like blow shit up. Like they just kind of keep bouncing back and forth between those two ideas. There's kind of a brain drain over there. You know, when you kill all your people for failure, you're like, but that one's good. Um, yeah, like I said, Diamonds Are Forever is okay. Then for Roger Moore, Live and Let Die is the super absurd one. There's literally a guy that I think is immortal in that movie. Uh, I can't even think of his name off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. Uh, then Moonraker, massive laser battle out in space. Like that one's excellent. Like the end's just so ludicrously over the top because of that. Uh, oh, yeah. Oh, if you do watch Diamonds Are Forever, just forewarning: the two henchmen that are out like killing a bunch of people for Blofeld are two gay guys. Like they're definitely just like go skipping off holding hands at one point. They're definitely in a relationship with each other, and like the movie just kind of like rolls with it. It's very progressive for a movie from like the early '70s. Uh, Probably don't watch Never Say Never Again. That was where someone successfully sued because they co-wrote the movie Thunderball, and a judge agreed that they had the right to remake that movie as many times as they wanted to, and they convinced Sean Connery to come back for that as James Bond. And it came out the same year as Moonraker. Moonraker just like devastated at the box office because it was like fake Bond, but played by real Bond, who at that point was an old man with gray hair. And everyone's like, we've seen this movie before. Like, we've literally seen this movie before. What is going on here? Uh, if you're going to watch any of the Dalton movies, License to Kill, I think, is the better of the two. It's where he's fighting Colombian drug lords who their front man on TV as a televangelist is Wayne Newton, the guy who's a performer out in like Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada. Uh, yeah, that one's better than the other one. Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye is excellent, and in my opinion, The World Is Not Enough is the other of his movies. You see, he did four of them. I don't like the last one. It's kind of absurd. I mean, it goes like way over the top. So if you really want to see that, go for it. And God, I can't think of the name of the other one he made. But like, I've got the feeling I should watch it again because at the time I was like, that's absurd that journalists would try to start World War III to sell newspapers. Modern me is like, no, I can see it. Maybe I need to rewatch that movie. Maybe it's more credible than I thought. The Craig movies, Quantum of Solace is almost pointless. They literally went in with like no script. I think they finished with no script also. Just kind of filmed some things and hope they could all piece it together. The other three he made that were decent. So
Like you got Casino Royale.
Casino Royale was decent. The only problem I have with Casino Royale, this is me nitpicking, Bond doesn't go in for Texas Hold'em. Bond goes in for like Baccarat games that Americans have no clue what the rules are or the stakes or anything, that only like a refined English gentleman would play in like Monte Carlo or something. Not this riffraff Texas Hold'em baloney. You know, Bond is above that, but like it's a Texas Hold'em tournament. I'm just like,
Wait, what?
because Bond's above that kind of thing. Bond's supposed to sail in, tell you that he wants another two. Somehow that means he wins. You have no idea what the hell's going on. The other person's upset about it. He's betting house money because they know it's him, because he's got like a credit line of credit to every casino on the planet.
They couldn't have had like some of the info dump how the game works.
No, no. I have seen Bond play backer in several movies, and I don't have the slightest clue how that game works.
Like
I've only ever seen it at one casino, and I felt too intimidated to even look at it.
Poker, blackjack. That's for the simple man.
Exactly. That's like the slot machines to Bond. Like he goes into a Texas Hold'em tournament. I expect him to win in like three hands, like all the money of all the people. Just bluff his way through everything or have the cards magically. But no, Lashif somehow beats him. That's the other thing. Wasn't super impressed with Lashif as a villain. I mean, like in hindsight, it's Mads Mikkelsen. Like he does play good villains, and like he probably did a better job than I think. I was probably still hung up on the whole Texas Hold'em thing.
I think so. I think his entire repertoire is villains.
Well, Galen Erso wasn't a villain, kind of. I mean, he did actually finish the Death Star, but like he also told him how to stop it. That counts for something.
I mean, like you've seen him play somebody who's not a villain once.
He was a good guy in the remake of Clash of the Titans.
Okay.
That's all I got. Like other than that, he's played like Hannibal Lecter in the prequel series, and Lashif, and whoever the hell he played in the first Doctor Strange movie. Caecilius, was that his name?
Maybe.
Utterly wasted in that role.
Do you care what his name was?
No, they should actually they should bring him back to play another villain. Be like, look, we all underestimated you back then. We know you can actually play villains. Who do you want to play? You can't play Doom though, even though you're probably the guy that could play Doom.
Yeah, you're right. He probably could.
Yeah, but yeah. Now, I mean, the other Bond movies are good though, in my opinion.
Is there any bad Bond movie?
Well, you'll probably find parts of On Her Majesty's Secret Service to be absurd. That's the one with George Lazenby, who up to that point was like, I don't know, he's a dancer or something. It's one of the only movies he's in. It's the only time he played Bond. However, Telly Savalas playing Blofeld is good. Telly Savalas is awesome. But I'm going to go ahead and spoil the end of the movie for you here, because it's the only thing that like carries over into other Bond movies. Bond gets married at the end of the movie. Okay?
I know what happens.
And, well, I'm going to spoil it for everyone else then. So, he gets married. He thinks he killed Blofeld just before that point. He quits MI6. Him and his wife driving off to go live happily ever after. Moneypenny's sitting there in tears, knowing she's never going to sleep with Bond now. And I think she's actually like legitimately happy for him. And they're driving along, and Blofeld comes up beside him in a car and like machine guns Bond's car. Bond pulls over. He's like, that was Blofeld. Let's go get him. And looks over, and his wife took one right between the eyes. And yeah. So the next movie starts Sean Connery's back as Bond. And it's him hunting down Blofeld to kill that bastard. And he finds like where Blofeld's like made some duplicates of himself. People had plastic surgery, and he kills them. Then he finds Blofeld with another duplicate later on, kills that duplicate, and yeah, it just keeps going. So, like it's directly referenced in the next movie. That's the only time continuity had ever mattered up to that point in the Bond movies. Other than whenever the head of Spectre mentions that Dr. No from the first movie was one of their agents. And Bond took him out. That's one of their, From Russia with Love is a really good one. So, then into the Roger Moore movies, the first Roger Moore movie is him at his wife's gravesite in the opening of the movie. And then he's like flying along in a helicopter, and like Blofeld takes control of the helicopter, and then Bond kills Blofeld. Finally, he's in like a wheelchair, and he like hooks him with the helicopter and drops it down like a smokestack in a power plant. But they can't call him Blofeld because they lost the rights to Blofeld and Spectre and all that for that lawsuit stupidity I mentioned. And then in the Timothy Dalton era, the second movie, his friend Felix Leiter gets married, and his wife, tosses him the thing, and he just kind of, just kind of smiles and walks away. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, he was married once. She died." It's like it's one of the only things that ever gets mentioned, and it's in the one movie that has just the guy that's in just the one movie that no one likes. It's like the only continuity thing that ever gets mentioned ever again. It's crazy. But yeah, yeah. I mean, they're all good. Almost all of the Connery ones are great. You could probably skip Doctor No, in my opinion. It's not so great. It's
Isn't
kind of slow.
isn't that the first one?
That's the first one. Yes, and I would probably start like with From Russia with Love. That one's good, and then Goldfinger. Because Goldfinger is like the prototype for like a lot of the other Bond movies afterwards. Because Connery fights Spectre in almost all the movies except for Goldfinger. Goldfinger is the billionaire industrialist who has some sinister plot, except he is not trying to destroy the world. He just wants to make his gold worth more money.
Yeah.
He's going to detonate an atomic bomb inside of Fort Knox to irradiate all the gold, thereby making it worthless. That's the plan. But like, it's a great plan. Like the actual plan itself, all the intricate moving parts and everything to make it happen. Plus, his henchman is like the uber henchman, odd job.
I mean, that's a lot easier than stealing all the gold from Fort Knox.
Yeah. Well, like the guys that were helping him thought they planned on stealing it, because they're like, Goldfinger, like it would take like a week to get all the gold out of the vault. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not taking the gold out." Well, then what the hell are you doing? He's like, "We're gonna detonate an atomic bomb in there." Like, you guys have helped me get all the parts in here. That Chinese gentleman you helped, they're the ones that gave me the bomb. So yeah, that one's good. Plus, you know how a lot of there's women in the Bond movies that have names that have other potential meanings.
Yes.
Well, this one has just the one that's like stupidly blatant. The others are like Zendaya on a top. Dr. Holly Goodhead. Things like that. This one is Pussy Galore. And it's just one of those, like, even when her Bond first hears her name, he's like, because he'd been knocked out, and he's on a plane. He's like, "Oh, now I know I must be dreaming." But the thing is, they changed it from the novel. She has that name for a reason in the novel. And in the movie, they kind of allude to it. She's a pilot. She has a squadron of pilots who are all women. Whenever Bond tries to win her over, she's like, "Oh, you'll find I'm quite immune to your charms, Mr. Bond." Turns out she's not. And this is also one of those unfortunate moments where Bond is clearly quite forceful in pushing this issue. This is one where I think Family Guy mocked it, where it's like Connery is like, "No, James, no." And finally, he's just like, and she says yes. He's like, "Remember, it's like 87 no's and a yes, still a yes." It's like, no, that's not how that works at all, Bond. But yeah, so yeah, so she's into women.
See, they are progressive.
Yeah, I guess. Except for the other part I just mentioned.
Well, sometimes you have to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, uh, yeah. Some of the like, there's her, there's Octopussy. I mean, it's there. That one's bizarre though, because the woman that plays her is in another Bond movie as another Bond girl and gets killed. I think it's Maud Adams is her name, her real name. She's in The Man with the Golden Gun, played by Christopher Lee. Scaramanga, the man who charges $1 million a shot, and kills people with golden bullets. He's after Bond just to prove that like he's the better like gunfighter. Like there's no higher like I'm not not working for anybody or anything. Like no, I just want to prove I'm the better guy. So yeah, Christopher Lee plays him. He had an interesting physical feature that Bond had to exploit because he had to pretend to be him at one point in the movie, and he like writes it down and hands it to Q. And Q's like, "Come on, Bond." Scaramanga has a third nipple, and so he needed a fake one. That's why Q was like, "Come on, this is one of your pranks. I know it is." No, the two greatest things I ever saw from Q was one. Is in Goldfinger. Whenever he tells him about the ejector seat, and Bond's like, he chuckles and right in Q's face, like, "Surely you must be joking, Q." And Q like deadpan, like he could like pull out a knife and shank Bond at that moment. It's like, I never joke about my work, 007. You see Bond's like, as one looks like, okay, well, mental note, don't piss off Q anymore. Then the other is in, I want to say it's GoldenEye. I think it's GoldenEye. It's one of the Pierce Brosnan ones. Pierce Brosnan's always like playing with all the gadgets and everything there at Q Branch, and finally there's a sandwich sitting there, and he picks it up, and he's like, "What's this, Q?" And Q snatches it from him. "That's my lunch." He's expecting it to be like a bomb or something, because nothing there is what it appears. This is right after Q just got done showing him a pen that when you click it 3 times becomes a grenade and explodes, which comes in handy at the end of the movie because they give it to this guy. This guy's a total spaz. Grabs it and he's sitting there like twirling it and clicking it. And Bond's like having to keep track of how many times he's clicking it. Once he finally hits the right sequence, like knows he's got to get the hell out of there because it's about to explode. So yeah, but yeah, no, the Bond movies are great. You should definitely watch them. That's my sales pitch to you, Owen.
Oh, that was a massive sidetrack.
It was. Thank you for watching. This has been a Geek Cabal video, Echoes of a Whisper. This has been a clip from one of our podcasts. The link to the actual podcast this is from is in the description of the video if you want to see the entire thing, which we obviously encourage you to do. But otherwise, if you enjoyed what you saw, a thumbs up is always appreciated. Subscriptions and all the rest is definitely appreciated. Comments, as always. But just in general, thank you for watching. Hope you liked it. And check out the other videos we have here on the channel. See you later.